Welcome to another episode of the Elite Investor Show. We're here today with Jeremy Kloter. Jeremy is a local legend in the property management realm. Jeremy's pretty well known here. You're doing the outfast brokerage, and the property management is a big focus for you right now. Mm-hmm. Would love to dive into more of that during our talk today. But I also want to talk about like what we kind of talked about off camera a second ago, like what people are doing just to make money in real estate. Because it's like, I think it's harder than ever right now to execute a strategy that's profitable and risk mitigated.
It's challenging. I'll have clients underwriting stuff and I'm like, dude, this doesn't make sense. Like, there was a 40 plus unit, something floating around. And I looked at it like a year ago with somebody and I'm like, dude, these numbers just don't make sense. And, but it sold recently. And I'm like, maybe it's gotta be just, and I talked to the broker and it's some out of state, probably 1031 sort of thing. But it's like, I have clients buying stuff and I'm like, man, the numbers just, unless you're paying all cash, it doesn't work. Yeah, which is pretty rare.
Kind of the feeling that I've gotten, and I'm open to people objecting to this, but the feeling that I've gotten is 2020 through 2022, maybe even 2018 to 2022, people only experience success. Because you could like buy a property wrong, do the wrong things with it, and then sell. Be like, I made money.
Yeah.
And my concern is that gave a lot of people like a false positive. Mm-hmm. And now people didn't learn any hard lessons during that time, and obviously I'm being I'm generalizing here, but people didn't learn many hard lessons during that time, and now it kind of changed their risk calculus. Mm-hmm. So now they're like, oh, I can afford that deal because we think debt's going to come back down and we'll be good in 2 years. It's like, if it doesn't though, you might be screwed.
Yeah, getting kicked in the teeth. I mean, my house is a great example. My old primary in Tampa Heights, and bought it in 2018. We moved out in 2022, and I rented it out. And I was making like a couple $100 a month because obviously VA loan. I didn't put any money down when I moved in, and so. But now I have like $100,000 in equity, and I'm sort of just looking at like now I'm losing money every month from taxes and insurance, and I'm like, well, this was a great deal. We got a lot of equity. Maybe we put like 15 into it while we were there. So like I have it on the market to sell it just to like recapitalize and do something better with it. But I've had like one client, and I just don't understand. They bought a house in Seminole Heights to rent out, and I'm like, you should invest as little as possible just to get like a decent rent. They put like $50,000 into this thing without us. They pretty much called us when we were done. I think they're losing like $500-700 a month, and they're like okay with it because like, oh, just long term it'll be good. And I'm like, what are we doing here?
And that's fine. that's fine if you can afford it and cash flow isn't your goal. I wouldn't recommend it, but like you can weather that. But yeah, if your business is all real estate investing, I think you need to be pretty diligent about like making offers on deals right now.
Yeah, and that's why like for me, the property management's always like, that's like my little golden goose, right? Like it pays a good salary. It's like where I can be more strategic and a little bit more risky on some of the other stuff that we're doing because I have that as a fallback, and it's residual. It pays me every month. Like I get my money before the owners get their money. Like it's a really comfortable space to be. But I know some people that are just full-time investing, or just like it's just all that commission-based sort of structure, and it's like, yeah, it's challenging.
Yeah,
I don't see a lot of deals penciling on stuff that we've looked at. We haven't really bought. We bought some things earlier this year, like February, March, and we haven't done anything since then. I think things will maybe change a little bit here coming up, but it's just like very slim.
Yeah, it is, and I see people kind of what leads me to believe the risk calculus thing, like 2018 to 2022 that I described, is I get sent a deal, I'm like, that's crazy, and then someone will buy it and be like, do they not, like, are they not doing the right analysis for this? It's kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, even in the property management business, like we had grown so much through those years because a lot of the 5+ unit properties were transacting, right? So guys at Franklin Street or CBRE, like they would call us and say, hey, I have a client buying this property, like you can interview for management, right? Like we're throwing your name in the hat. Mm-hmm. So we would get a lot of those 5 to 30 unit opportunities because they were transacting, and they would bring in new management. But those haven't, like, it's been probably at least 2 years since I've had like a real solid one that we've wanted to take on that's been in that range. We brought in an 8 unit, 7 unit, some smaller stuff, but that bigger, like I just don't see any of it changing any hands. It was like the business got really good, and so with that, when the business is going well, it can hide mistakes, right? So
yeah, that's a good way to put
it. Investors pull back. It sort of like shakes things out. So we're like, oh man, like for us, for labor, right? Like we were kind of overstaffed for like growth that was coming up. But like looking back, is I should have been much more diligent. Sort of when it was frothy, I should have like reined some things back in. Because when the market shifts or just things slow down or we have a bunch of vacancies from like the storms that hit, all that stuff impacts revenue. And it's like, we got too comfortable with sort of like the growth we were on, thinking that it would continue for a little longer.
I think a lot of people did. I think we did too. It really helps you kind of analyze a property if you're like, hey, I think we can budget for 5% rent bumps in Tampa every single year. Rent has gone down. You think rent has gone down?
Yeah. So I tell people now, like if you can't stomach like 2 to 3 years with like rent staying the same, I wouldn't buy it.
Yeah.
And I would even pencil in that you're having to give some up. So yeah, we've definitely had properties that rent for less, and it's all over the board. We had one property, for some reason, one house in South Tampa. It's just like an okay house. I think we're like 300 below what we were 12 months ago on the last tenant.
Yeah.
And maybe we just got the right tenant at the right time. Sometimes you get lucky. You put something a little bit high, you get somebody. But
you do.
And then we've had some apartments and stuff where like, maybe we got $100 less than the last tenant. But definitely feeling it. And when it comes to rent increases, just like some owners are doing none, some are doing like $25, like $50. We're basically saying, if you can keep a tenant right now, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And so even if you have to, even my tenants in Ybor, maybe I bumped them like $100, but that was about it. And so very much a time to be conservative. And yeah, I'm just telling people that are penciling deals, like you can't bank on the rent growth right now. And it's taking so much more like online activity to get those leads, to get to showings, to get to applications, to get to approved applicants. Like it's such a higher volume of stuff that's needed. And the national average, it sort of changes based on the price range of the rentals. But basically, it's taking way longer than it used to fill vacancies. Plus right now we're in like the slowest time of the year. But aside from that, and it's a national thing, taking much more effort to lease properties than it used to.
Yeah, it kind of has me wondering, like, where are people going? Because I'm seeing that on high-end rentals. I'm seeing that at just normal average rentals. I'm seeing that on low-income housing. I'm like, where are people going? The other thing, well, I'll let you respond to that if you have any hypothesis.
I think people are just downsizing or being really picky about where they're going and not moving if they don't have to. But we have some properties that were just like, for one bedroom or something in Tampa, $1,300, $1,400, and it still took us like 2 months to fill it. This one's kind of a little more sketchy spot, but still, it's like it's so affordable too. I'm like, where are people? What are you going to rent other than this? And so it's kind of like this race to the bottom that I think is happening a little bit. And if you're in a good location, like we have some good stuff in South Tampa and a few things where like it always leases fast. But if you're in these more like sketchy areas or just areas where it's like less desirable, it's going to be even more noticeable now in the rental market.
Now, when it leases fast, though, I don't think it's at like a tip-top rate from what I've seen. Would you?
No, we've been like pricing stuff. So if we say owner calls us and we're like, hey, you're between 18 and 21 or 18 and $2,000, I'm trying to put them at 18 to move it as quick as we can. And it comes down to, obviously, owners will trip over $50, but when you look at, okay, you just went a whole nother month without rent, what are we doing, right? So like they never do that analysis of just chop it. If you have professional photos and it looks really good and you've rented it decently before, it's just price. Just bring it till you get somebody in, and then next year you can rent bump or do whatever you need. But like right now, you just need to move it as quick as you can.
I've always tried to remind myself of that, even on my own listings, right? Because you got logic and you got emotion. You're like, I think it's worth this, and you start to get emotional about it. But like, dude, if you're doing the right things for like normal marketing, nothing markets a property like a great price.
Yeah,
that's the best
we
marketing
do. Like
tool,
we've leased probably thousands of times at this point since 2015. And owners are like, oh, what are you guys doing? Like, what are you? And I'm like, dude, we do the same thing we've always done because it's always worked. Like historically, we've been right around a 3-week mark from approved application on a property once it goes live. And it's like, if it's longer than that, or it's, let's say the average now in the marketplace is 30, 45 days, like national average of how long it's taking, it's just price. Like you just got to keep bringing it down and like, it just is what it is at this point. So it's tough because everyone's been spoiled for quite a while now. People now get kicked in the teeth, but just really trying to renew tenants that are in there, just keep them to stay in and happy. And, it's like to maximize the profitability of the property, it's like you got to keep the tenants happy right now. And that flows into like the maintenance piece of it. Like all the maintenance throughout the year that you do. And like if you're bickering over the tenant over like this little fix, I'm like, dude, that stuff kills your renewal rates. Like tenants remember that stuff. They're like, man, screw these people. They don't want to fix anything. It's tough because owners are like the only way to improve bottom line right now is like a lot of it's can't really do anything about taxes or insurance. It's like a lot of it's focused around maintenance. But it's like nothing's getting cheaper and you can't just not fix stuff. Like all that stuff plays into the lease renewals. So like an owner wanting to fight over spending X amount on something, it's like you really have to think about how does that play into the renewal process and the thought process of the tenant to keep them happy, to keep them in there? You know?
Rental market, kind of like the dynamics we're seeing across the Tampa market right now. But the purchase market, I look at that. So I look at like, what's the median income of the standard kind of person that's here in Tampa? What are the houses priced at in like a pretty acceptable area? And then like looking at the consumer debt, like how much debt people have just in general right now. I'm like, how is this going to be affordable for people? Like, it leads to me having uncertainty.
100%. And just even in my community, we bought a new house in 2022, and I'm like, you know, I just looking at some of my neighbors and stuff, and like, you know, I don't know their financial situation, but I'm sort of just like looking, and I'm like, man, you know, and I'm like conservative, right? I'm still driving older Ford Explorer and like that sort of stuff. And but I'm like, dude, how do these people afford this? Because I know what these houses are renting for on my street, and then they're driving like the brand new, you know, $100,000, you know, Escalade and this or that. And I'm like, man, I don't know if it's just me or they're just living like way above their means. But it's tough, and it's like we have, you know, when we're analyzing tenants and stuff too, it's like, man, we just had a pop in like evictions. Like normally it's pretty low, but we got like 5 or 6 going on right now, which is pretty unusual. And it's like some of those are like really low price stuff, like really low on the low side. So it's like the affordability aspect, anything that's coming in, interrupting that income or loss of hours due to the storms or whatever, like everything is starting to impact that sort of bottom line. And it's like, yeah, I don't know where these people are able to afford anything. You know, we got fortunate because we've always been doing VA loans, so you know, just don't have to put anything down, but still have to be able to stomach the the mortgage payment. But yeah, for these people with the price and the rates, I'm doing the benefit I think is it's keeping a lot of people in the rental side for now, because still most times it'd be cheaper to rent than buy. So
well, I guess that's kind of a weird thing that we're seeing though. If it was keeping a lot more people in the rental market, I would have surmised that the rental market would go up, the rent prices would go up, but that hasn't been the case. There are not that many buyers that are in the market to purchase a property either. So I'm like, it's just a really weird dynamic right now.
Yeah.
I was looking at a 3.2 in West Tampa. I was like, this would be a decent rental if I just want to like pick up something quick. I don't really want to buy single family homes anymore as rentals anymore. But it was like 400,000. I started looking at the numbers on it. I was like, nobody can afford this for what it is.
Yeah. And your return on it was what like 3%, 5%, 7% or something?
Yeah, it's like you gotta pay cash just to like get just insurance and taxes are going.
Yeah, we had a client buy a 10 unit recently, but they paid cash, like $2 million or whatever it was. And so it's like, yeah, the only thing that I've seen work right now is cash. And then other than that, I don't have a lot of clients like adding to their portfolio. A lot of accidental landlords right now.
Yeah, that's a good way to
even
put
on the brokerage side, like, you know, just volume-wise, stuff's been down. So like, yeah, hopefully stuff picks up. I think people are optimistic, at least real estate investors, with, you know, Trump coming in. So we'll see. But it's kind of like, what do you do in the meantime? And I think we've seen, whether it's through the local investor meetups or clients, like sometimes you just feel like they're getting into the market because they want to be part of a deal and they want to do a deal, and it's like, man, it's just not the right time to be doing
Test things out.
Well, it's tough to sit on the sideline because you just feel like you're wasting time, especially for business owners, entrepreneurs. You're like, man, I need to be doing something, right? I need to be like doing deals. But it's like, it's really tough to just be like still.
It is. It's really tough for me. I get that. Let's talk about, you just brought some out, like going to local meetups and your clients and stuff. Let's talk about your property management business. Where do you think your best source of, like, do you track this? Like, what's the best source of new clients you usually get? Is it?
Yeah, 2 things really for us just been, because we don't do any paid ads or anything. And so it's really just been referrals. So mostly, you know, even though we have the brokerage, like a lot of my referrals are outside agents. Either residential agents that just refer us because, you know, we've known them for a while, or like build a good brand. And then a lot of the multifamily guys, like some guys at Franklin Street and CBRE, and those guys will at least give us an opportunity when they have clients that are doing deals. And then Google reviews, man. From early on in the business, we were just real heavy on getting Google reviews. So I think we have like, you know, for a smaller company, we still have 200 something reviews, and I think it's like 4.4 or 4.5, which is really hard when you look at property management companies to have like a really good rating. Yeah, dude, because you really have 2 clients, and yeah, you have the owners, but you have the tenants, and so it's really difficult. But people find us like that. I think we sort of got fortunate where we're based in Tampa and where our office is in Ybor, and before that we were by the Bucs Stadium. So we were kind of in an area when people Google, like we were kind of in an area where like people were buying a lot of rentals. We just kind of got lucky with that geography of like people searching, and we were like relatively close to where the properties were at or where they were doing stuff. And so yeah, just basically Google reviews, people search by that or just look at that, and referrals.
Yeah.
And yeah, agents, mixture of agents from different brokerages referred us, and so we always pay for those referrals, and that's always been helpful. And lately we've seen a little bit of an uptick in short-term rental, people switching to long-term rental, where that model doesn't work anymore, depending on when they bought it. So we've had some properties that we've converted. We don't manage the short-term, but we've taken some over where we've fully converted them back to unfurnished 12-month tenants. So that's been there's been an uptick in like business from that piece too, switching models.
Yeah.
So depending on when they bought the property, that's a whole other segment we could go into, but that nightly rates have been compressed quite a bit. There's been a lot of like inventory that's kind of like cleaned up. So I think over time it'll get better. It's like a lot of people have been switching back. Like they just want the consistency of a long-term tenant and not the high expense of sort of what it takes to operate the short-term model.
It's a hard market to make money in, man. You got high expenses, got like even one little setback can really blow out your cash flow, can really blow out a deal.
Especially like on the rental side, it's a lot of people, we don't see enough owners that set aside cash reserves, so storm comes through, you got all this tree work you got to do, and like that stuff's not, I don't think really covered by insurance. So a lot of owners like forking some out, and some of them are like, I have one owner they're like, man, this is like a lot of this money set aside for property taxes. Now we're having to sort of float repairs with it. So it's like, you can never have like too much cash on hand, You can, but it's like, it's a really good thing just to be a little cash heavy sometimes. Your original question, Google reviews or referrals, man. That's really been a lot of it. And yeah, just networking. Right now I just go to like one of ours once a month, and I go to yours, and that's kind of mostly it for real estate meetups, trying to pick and choose which ones are most productive and highest value.
Yeah. Do you think managing a property yourself is ever worth it? Like what scenarios is it worth it, if it is?
Yeah, I think it can be in like at the very beginning, if you're new to it and you want to understand a little bit of what it's about, I think it's a good thing. I think people can test it. I think they need to be educated, fair housing laws, there's sort of a lot they need to learn before they really try it, so they don't get in hot water. But I don't think it's a terrible idea for like a short period. Mm-hmm. I think most people shouldn't, unless they're educated or sort of somewhat in the real estate space before they start having rentals, to build something internally to like really do it properly yourself. Like if you have the right team to sort of do it, that stuff that definitely could be a possibility. But yeah, there's like this weird area in between where it's like, it sort of depends on your experience level in real estate. So if you have a typical 9-to-5 and you're a CPA and you're like buying rentals, like probably not, right? But if you're like a real estate agent or like yourself, you're like an investor, developer, like then it might make sense where you could do it for longer because you sort of like have the context of the industry already versus like kind of coming from outside the world real estate.
Yeah.
So it depends. I think if you're looking at property management companies, just ask for referrals, man. Just like we're happy to always provide landlord references and stuff, and there's definitely differences. Some companies might have in-house maintenance, some may not. Some may do a hybrid. Like we don't like managing low-income stuff anymore. There's certain areas of Tampa where I used to be like, we would take business like there, and then I won't now. So I refer that to other property managers. There's even guys or friends of ours that manage a lot of multifamily, but they'll send us stuff under like 10 units because they just don't want to do it. So there's actually a lot of referral opportunities between property managers too for stuff that may not be the right fit. But I think, just starting with referrals of other investors, and if you don't, go out to a local real estate meetup and just ask around. I think that would be a great way to sort of find who's going to be best tuned for you. I don't think that like them having an office near your property makes much of a difference, geographically or anything. So it's kind of tough, I think, for people on the outside looking in to understand some of the differences. Like, obviously everyone's going to look at pricing, this or that, but I think it really just comes down, if you can get referrals, that's going to be a great way to find a company that's really good. There's a lot of advances in technology and stuff that make, I think, smaller companies good, but you have these big franchises or companies that try to offer sort of a discounted service that are more technology based. And I think it depends on the type of asset. Like the 5 to 30 unit can be a very challenging scattered site management style that you need versus like if you just have a house, it's pretty simple. Like that's the easiest thing any of us do is houses, right? So it's like, I think it could depend too on the type of asset, the type of company that you're looking for. So there's a couple variables, but I would say if you can ask for referrals, shop a couple of them, and you should be able to get a pretty good feel for the differences and sort of market knowledge that they have. And then sometimes they might have additional resources that make it worthwhile. Like we have the brokerage, so right, if you want to sell your property, we can give you a discount on the commission. So there might be some vertical integration too that can happen that they may have access to that sort of may flip your decision as well. But most companies have pretty much like, hey, give us 30 days notice and you can move on and it's cool, right? So if you ever choose a company you're not happy with them, it's a pretty easy way to get out. Like we don't have a cancellation fee, just give us 30 days notice and do whatever you want.
That's surprising to hear you mention that, because every property management agreement like I've ever been a part of or reviewed or signed was like really, really exclusive and hard to break. Usually
it's like a year term, but it should say, hey, if you break within 30 days, like faster than 30 days, maybe it's a couple $100 penalty or something. But for us, it's like, any reason, it doesn't even matter. You could just say like whatever. And then 30 days notice and we're like fine, like no penalties or anything. Now, if there's like, where it changes for us is if you have over 10 units, we might just ask for like 60 days. But yeah, there are some companies that I think they'll try to hold you for the entire time, the rest of the agreement till the annual thing expires, or the tenant. So if the tenant lives there, as long as the tenant's there, we have to manage it, which like seems kind of crazy to me. I would never sign that if I was an investor. But I've seen companies with very sticky management agreements.
And the listing on the back end.
We have something in there like, hey, we can give you a discount, but it's like, it is a lot more work to work out with an outside agent if it's like, especially with multi-unit properties, if it's being sold, like it's really, there's a lot to sort of do with that. So I understand to some context, like sometimes like there could be additional ways to bill for extra work that's involved in a sale, but to like force them to use you to sell it, to me doesn't really make sense. Because if you're selling a house, it's different than selling a 20 unit that you're gonna use like, Franklin Street to sell. Like, it's just completely different. And not everyone's gonna have that capacity to sell it, even if they have sales operations, like it's just completely different. So yeah, that's probably something we don't focus enough on is like pitch it that way. Like we're not, we talk through it with new clients, but it's like, we're not sticky. Like it's just easy. Like, and we've had been in the market for a while and it's just like, sometimes, it's just not the right fit or something happens or whatever, expectations aren't set right and, whatever, you got to part ways. And we just try to make it easy so that in the future we can get referrals from the other property managers. That way, like if we're transitioning properties to somebody else, I want to have a good relationship with the other management company and vice versa. So, because if we could buy them at some point or refer business to them or they refer to us, like there's always, it's kind of a small circle. It's not surprising because I've seen it, some have really sticky ways to keep you on the contracts.
Yeah. Now, what does your team look like, the amount of people that touch property management versus like work at the brokerage, or is it all intermingled?
Yeah, no, it's different. The property management, I think right now we have five of us as like full-time, and a couple of those are remote. So within the different companies that property management, the brokerage, and like architecture stuff, like we use a lot of outside US. And so we have people Philippines, India, Mexico, UK, and remote. The thing I like about property management is like, we need to go on site for some stuff, right? Like you need boots on the ground, but so much of it's repetitive virtual stuff. So we've been huge proponents for a long time on remote team members outside the US. One for businesses, it's great. I can get the same productivity for like fourth the cost, right? So like there's a lot of benefits for certain roles to do remote. So we have good flexibility remote, kind of hybrid work schedules and stuff like that. And so if we can, we like to promote from within. So I'd rather hire like a new person and just train them to grow up versus hiring like a higher level from outside coming in as well. So huge proponent of remote if we can, which I think a lot of businesses in real estate can do well with, especially investors, like wholesalers, whatever. Like there's so much value that you can get from somebody remote too that helps out. You help them, they help you, and it's a great thing. So I think there's 5 of us now on the management between property manager, inspectors, and stuff like that, and then some freelance staff for bookkeeping, that sort of stuff. But for like full time, I think we're at 5 or 6.
Does that include you?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. What about the brokerage? Like, what's the size of your brokerage now? You are the broker, right?
Yeah, so I think we have 55 agents right now, and so staff is really like 4 of us. It's really like 3 with one that helps some when needed, and so it's really small.
Yeah.
It's just like agent questions sort of stuff or DAs. Like it's nothing real crazy. So we might do some trainings or new agent onboarding, but it's pretty chill. We've been doing it for a while. So the brokerage we started in 2016. The property management, we formally like split that company out in 2017.
Gotcha.
We've been through so many different softwares and models of commission splits, all that stuff. So like we've got it pretty dialed in at this point where like it's a relatively low time investment every week for the brokerage side. So
and I've seen it go both ways, right? You've got the model where it's like high amount of hands-on, especially for new agents, but the split is like 50-50 or something wild. But then I've also seen it go the other way, and I will say, it's unfortunate I have to say this, but it has been the case for me. This has been my experience, that this next model where it's like very hands-off, it's like you pay a fee per transaction, but you get zero mentorship. I find as an agent, when I'm still doing a few client deals per year, I find those are the worst agents because you are shouldering the weight of that whole transaction on your end because you do know what's supposed to happen and they've never gotten any mentorship and they have not a clue.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah, we offer like a couple plans and like we offer some mentorship, especially for newer agents, like to do like a heavier split to have more hand holding. But yeah, that's, the thing is some of those, the high volume sort of agents, low fee, like it's just no support and that's like their model, right? And so it does definitely take a lot more effort to have a more tailored approach, but it's like, the challenge with the agent stuff is like they want all the value, they don't use 90% of it. So when you look at softwares, all this stuff, I mean, we've had the best stuff you could ever pay for and they just don't use it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's kind of that dynamic balance, like you want to offer good software, good technology, good support, but everyone knows it's like, I would say it's even like 90-10, like 10% of the agents are doing all the deals, right? So it's, when you have that, it's like, yeah, you got to make money every month from fees or whatever and shift through different models, but it's challenging because it's like the agents don't want to pay for that level of support or training a lot of times, unless they're like brand new. A lot of, or first, well, I should say, usually within the first few years, where like if someone's done some deals, by the time they're in 2 or 3 years, like they might have like a decent handle on stuff. But it's challenging because like a lot of agents don't want to pay for that level of support, and so it's kind of like this, and that's why we changed our model and stuff over the years, kind of finding where we really fit in. Sometimes a lot of people just look at the cost, especially when the market's slow. They're like, oh man, this place is charging me $200 a month, or I can move this place where it's $50 a month, or no monthly fee. And I was like, dude, just do it, right? Because it's all about just a couple bucks, which is crazy. But and then it's from I heard you were talking yesterday on, I don't know where I was listening to the other day. I had like some grumpy old agent that's been in the business for a while. That you were talking about it's not difficult to be nice to people. Yeah. Right. You mentioned that. And
it was like a podcast I was on or something?
It was just something that was, maybe it was on one of the recordings. Oh, because I go back and I watch your webinar. I usually watch them recorded because I got to watch them later time. But yeah, you were just like said something about that where it's like this agent's been in the industry for 40 years or whatever it was, and like they're still just terrible people to deal with. So yeah,
it's always, I don't know why this is, but it's always the agent who feels the need to remind you of how long he or she, it just so happens, it doesn't, I'm not like a sexist, but it just so happens it's a female when I encounter this. I don't know why. Very seldomly has it been a male, but when I have encountered it, they always remind me of how long they've been in the industry, and that's usually the marker that kind of triggers me to be like, oh, it's probably one of these types of people where, they rest their performance on how long they've been doing it. Well, check it out. You might have been doing it wrong for 40 years.
Oh yeah.
So, I think she'd been an agent since like 1989 or something, and the crazy part was she was super standoffish. I made an offer. She actually hung up on me on the phone, and I'm glad that you got this on the recording. But she hung up on me on the phone. She countered $15K higher than the offer price, and I was like, no, we'll just pass. And then 2 days later, she came back to me at my offer. She's like, they actually will do it now, and it already expired. I was like, we're just gonna pass. I was the buyer, so I can do whatever I want. But
she was probably the one that, without her client's consent, she was probably the one that's like, oh, I'm just gonna counter at 15 and see if they take it. And she probably didn't go to the client and ask.
I don't even know, but I need it cheaper now because I already you've trained me now. You've conditioned me to know that you're gonna be a giant pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And that to me is worth some amount of money, and so I'm good. I don't need to chase this transaction.
The amount of deals that agents kill because they just suck, or they're just like, you have to remember you're just like in between. You just tell one side what the other says. Like, you don't need to get all this drama involved. And like, I don't do any sales or listings anymore, but it's like, there were so many times where you're like, dude, this is way more difficult than it needs to be. Like, for no reason.
Yeah. To me, you're, like, as an agent, you're kind of like, you're a coach and a facilitator. You're applying technical knowledge of how a transaction should go, providing recommendations and guidance, and then just taking data and filtering it through those lenses. Yeah. And then you facilitate the transaction between parties. Yeah.
I think sometimes agents are trying too hard to prove their worth, right? Some are like scared all this AI text, like all this stuff's gonna come in and take their jobs, and they're like, yeah, some of it's gonna be impacted on how, like, what you do, your value. It's just silly, man. Deal with it.
I think the right agent is still necessary. Like, so Danielle in the group, she has our townhomes listed. She has bent over backwards to get those things marketed. Yeah. She's doing a really great job. And so I'm like super glad that she's on the case. But some agents, I'm like, you don't do anything. Like, you just sit back, you put up a listing, you sit back, and you're like, all right, let me just forward you the showing feedback. Like, that's not effective.
Like, that stuff may used to work at some point, but it's like, it doesn't always, or in certain markets. And yeah, different brokerages sizes too, like, there's benefits to just being like a small brokerage, like, just have 5-10 agents or just be your own broker.
That's how we are here.
It's like the volume sounds great, but it's like, it just depends on what you're looking for, in a team. So I think for you guys, like, yeah, just keep it small so that you have agents that can help you save costs, or like how you structure your deals. You sort of have that in-house where you're not getting tied up and sucked into a bunch of trainings and stuff where it's like not productive for the time of the business model. Like to have so many agents, you have to do all this extra effort versus like the core competent.
Listing a house in 2021 versus listing a house now, way different listing strategy. You got to actually put in work, I think.
Yeah, and have the marketing budget to do it, right? It's like understanding what the agent's going to offer, because when the market's tight and stuff, but they don't have a ton of deals going on, like they're trying to pinch pennies everywhere they can.
Yeah.
So understanding the marketing strategy and what they're really going to be putting into it is important.
Do you watch most of the recordings?
Yeah, I at least go through and say, okay, like this is timely for me, I'll check it out. So I have it as like basically a weekly reminder.
Yeah.
Go in and try to check them out.
That's good.
I try to do that because like, there's definitely a lot of value in the group and just trying to at least stay in tune with what I can. So yeah, I went through the HELOC one recently, and then
that was good.
Ryan McGinnis.
Yeah.
So I listened to both of those on Friday. Texted Ryan about a few things.
So. What value do you think you're getting out of the group, like the most?
There's like a lot of good referrals when people are asking for stuff, which I think is really good.
There's so much, Jared put it this way, so this isn't my term, I'm stealing his term. Shout out Jared. He's like, there's so much layup business in there if you just pay attention.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, for the right builder to come in, just check in the Facebook group twice a day. You'll get at least one new potential to bid every single week if you just do that. Yeah.
Yeah, like when I don't do BNI anymore, but what I did, I was like in the first year, I had like so many referrals out because like from a property management perspective, there's like so many different trades and things that we touch that are helpful for people. And then with the architecture stuff, we get like a lot of extra engineers and this or that. And it's like as agents or property managers, like a big piece of it's like you're just facilitating relationships. Like people are looking at you to have a solution for all these crazy stuff we run into. So that's been like a big thing for the group. And then all just the quick little things, because I always watch my stuff, listen, audiobooks, whatever, like at a faster speed, so I can get through a lot of stuff pretty quick. And it's good just to sort of, even though I don't have time to be there in the person at a time, is like just tune into the recordings and pay attention to what's going on in the group. It's only as valuable as the members want to be, make it. So the more effort you put into it, it's like then the group really excels. It helps you, bring in more people, elevates sort of the framework of the group and the members too. I
do most of my deals through the group now.
Yeah.
So like,
we've built it up to, you have 60, 70 people plus now, 80 people?
What are we at? I think we're at 80 something, 80, 90. So we have a few people who are like partner members. And so that's not like a full price member, because we let partner members come in at like 50% of the rate or whatever. Yeah. We used to let them just tag on, just add it on for nothing, but we started doing it at 50% now. And that's the way it'll be moving forward. But when you account for that, which is like not a full price member, it's over 100. But for like for just base members,
but there's been people in there that we've managed for or like had the opportunity to interview with, and I'm like, I saw that name. I'm like, dude, like we talked like a year ago about property management, like they were exploring self-managing or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so that's been funny, sort of see the small circle. Like it's really a small circle when you've been in the industry for a while. And I mean, there's probably less than 5 people that still come to our meetups that were here like in 2016, like 15, 16, when I started to go to a bunch of them. So it's like, it's such a small piece. One, because maybe they moved out of the area, whatever, or they don't have the reputation anymore that they used to, and so they don't show up for certain reasons. But it's like, dude, it's such a small circle, man. It really is.
Yeah.
Like, but to have 80 people that are like, really invested in being full-time investors or developers or contractors or whatever it is, like that's a big amount of people, really, to have like this sort of elevated skill level that like is just, there's so many opportunities where you don't, to sell a deal, it's like you can just go to the group. Whether you sell it directly or a wholesaler in the group knows somebody that'll buy your deal.
If you have a deal and it's sellable and you're struggling to sell it, just find the right person in the group and you'll sell it.
There's so many people who are like, you gotta build your buyers list, and like we don't really wholesale much anymore, but like we have obviously tons of contacts list in our list, but it's like that's like one of the things the gurus say, right? You got to build your buyers list, and it's like if someone just paid to be a part of your group, it's all the buyers list they ever need. They don't have to even build one. It's like it's just there.
Yeah, I appreciate it. All right, 2 questions. So where do you feel challenged in business right now? What's challenging you?
Like I really want to bring more maintenance in house that's subbed out, and it's just like So I put a lot of thought behind that. I think, next year will be a good time for us. I was building that model with somebody this year that unfortunately passed away, and so I had to sort of take a step back. But that would be big for us. I think that's more of in demand from an investor standpoint, is to have a lot more control over the maintenance process and guys, and have guys on W-2. And last year, we probably coordinated $1.5 million in maintenance and CapEx. So we do a substantial amount, and all that's mostly subbed. We have a couple guys that we feed them most of their business, so it's we do have some sense of control, but it's not the same as sitting somebody at a property for 8 hours and say don't move and just finish a unit. So maintenance is kind of one thing that we think operationally would something that we were working towards, and we sort of have framed out. But then I think there's more investor demand for it too. When we go back to controlling costs on rental properties, they're looking at that as a bigger value add for your property management company when they're looking for property managers than they used to.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing for that, on the property management side, is that I feel very good about our staff and our team and capability. We could handle easy another 100 units easily with no extra staff based on what we have built and the technology. But yeah, that's really kind of the next big push for us, is diving into that and building that out.
Yeah, but you kind of took it a direction I was already headed. So somebody hears this show and they want to work with you. What's the best way they can work with you, and how do they get in touch?
Yeah, so really, you can just you can go through the website, or just reach out to me by cell, 813-610-0015. So
we'll put a little thing here.
I do all the business development, but on any Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, it's all Jeremy Kloter, Kloter. I'm the only one with my name on Google, so it's very easy to find me. So yeah, just reach out and just see if we're a good fit for each other and properties and stuff. But we pretty much manage most of Hillsborough, most of Pinellas County is kind of our forte.
That's your sweet spot.
Yeah, try to stay within 45 minutes of the Tampa airport. That's a good rough idea where we're at.
Cool.
Yeah, man.
All right. Anything else you want to share?
Appreciate the invite, and checking out your local meetups. Next one's coming up. Got it in the calendar.
You got it on the calendar?
Yeah, dude.
You like that meetup?
Yeah, dude. I've been doing the meetup stuff for a long time, and it's the quarterly stuff, especially that. I haven't been able to make the monthly happy hour ones as much, but quarterly stuff's been really good. A lot of the investors I haven't seen in a while, they're pretty high powered. I've seen them there.
At our thing?
Yeah.
At this thing?
Yeah.